This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin. Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Body Bags with Joseph Scott Moore. You know, one of my favorite characters to arise out of the 60s is a cat named Billy Preston. And the reason is that I really dug the way Billy played keyboards, Hammond organ in particular. He was amazing, was on a bunch of the Beatles albums. But, you know, I think it was 1974, he came up with this fantastic song. And it's one of the songs that you get in your brain that you can't get out. It's always rattling around in there. And that's Nothing from Nothing. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing, you know, but you got to have something. Today, we're going to back up a little bit and reflect on a case that I think some people think that they had nothing, but I have a suspicion they have something. It's actually the case of Anna Walshe, which we've talked about on Body Bags, but we're going to provide an update. And literally within, I don't know, probably the last hour of me actually taping this, there's been an update involving one of the investigators as well. So without further ado, let's get into this. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags. I think I liked Billy so much, Dave, because he just let it all hang out on the keyboard. He would pour everything into it and bounce back and forth, and you never knew where his hair was going to go either. I was pretty amazed by that, but man, could that guy play and sing. And, but, you know, with Anna Walsh's case, it would seem as though that who has made her disappear, this person that has made her disappear, I think thought that they weren't going to leave any trace or any element of her around. And I think they have. As a matter of fact, there's been extensive DNA testing. You know, this case has kind of gone dormant for a while, Dave, hadn't it? I mean, we heard about it for a long time, and then all of a sudden just like poof, it's gone. But
I think a lot of times that happens, Joe, because when the story begins, like in this particular case, you have a mom of two who goes missing around a New Year's holiday. Wealthy, you know, upscale, and she goes missing either away from home, you know, because she works out of town. And it's got all the jet set money. It's got the family stuff. It's got all these little pieces of intrigue. And then you start peeling it back and you realize, wait a minute, she's married to a shyster, you know, apparently. And so all the evidence starts coming out right away. I mean, you know, because we did shows with Nancy Grace about it. And all of these new things start popping up about this piece of evidence and that piece of security film. But then once it gets past the charges, everybody kind of hunkers down. Yep. Now you can't get information unless it comes out in the court, because the defense is trying to strategize for how they're going to defend the guy, and the prosecution's trying to keep their angle shut down so that nobody can find out where they're headed and what they have until they need to know. I mean, it's a crazy time of quiet. It
is. And can I propose something to you here?
Not marriage.
No, trust me. No, this is something else. I think that one of the reasons that we don't have as much on this case, perhaps, as we might otherwise, is because it's been eclipsed by the Karen Reed case.
Wow.
That's what I think. And here's why. I don't know if you remember this cat, but do you remember Michael Proctor? Mm-hmm. He was a trooper that was involved in the investigation of the Karen Reed,
A very quick side. Will we ever know what really happened, Joe?
I have no idea. I really don't. And I've tried to stay away from that case as much as I can because it's so conflicted on both sides. There's not a lot of clarity. And there was such a poor job done at the scene, the way the case was handled. And
very quickly, Joe,
it makes me want to talk about it more. When I think about how poor the forensics were. But,
just so y'all know, I asked Joe about it because we're talking about the Karen Reed case, which is in the same geographical area this one is, Anna Walshe, and that Karen Reed case has ended up being a hung jury. She was not acquitted. Isn't that what happened? I mean,
Yeah,
there was a mistrial.
I think was it a mistrial, Dave, or was she found not guilty?
No, she wasn't found not guilty. I don't think. They were deciding whether to try her again.
Yeah, that's true, and bring subsequent charges. Yeah. I had, Michael Proctor was one of these characters that kind of, with the death of John O'Keefe, Officer John O'Keefe, he was one of the individuals that had been put on the case as an investigator from Massachusetts State Police. And he had made these, inflammatory comments about Reed, and it had made it into the court record, and they actually questioned about him on stand. Well, as so happens, he was in fact one of the investigators in Anna Walshe's case. And as of, I guess it's less than an hour ago, it has been stated plainly that he will not be involved in the Anna Walshe case anymore. And so that's, I think that's kind of a big reveal at this point in time, because he was kind of on the leading edge of this investigation, which, to say that this is a complex case, I think, is an understatement. Because you've got this beautiful mother who has allegedly been dismembered, and she has been deposited in a variety of different locations, all over this area. Allegedly.
Because they haven't found anything.
They have not found anything. The only thing that they have found, and I guess that's a big part of this, they've been processing this DNA evidence for a protracted period of time. They have found evidence of blood. We've got this bent knife that we believe that was used. And of course, there's a lot of circumstantial, I think, information relative to this case regarding how the accused husband would have gone about doing these horrible deeds relative to his wife. And a lot of this arises as well from these internet searches that he had conducted, talking about, well, one of the ones was trying to, and I found this very interesting. How do you stop a body from decomposing, or how do you stop a body from decomposing? And you're thinking, well, most people that would perpetrate a crime would want the body to decompose, and a matter of fact, want the body to decompose as expeditiously as possible. But that leads you as an investigator to think, well, he's retaining the body for some reason. He's trying to prevent it from smelling so that he can continue to do whatever it is that he's going to do with the body to, break her up in any number of ways, and to take her body, individually wrap it, and deposit it around a variety of areas. There have been landfill searches, which are one of the most gruesome undertakings. And it's not just that you're looking for body parts in this environment. It's everything else that you encounter in that environment. It's very austere, to say the least. And so you've got that. And then, you've got this issue of him having gone to the store and spent, I don't know, roughly $400 on implements that could be used both to dismember and to clean up with. So this is what they're faced with, and it has gone silent up to this point. I think that the last hearing in this case was this previous March, and that wasn't a huge reveal, but if I'm not mistaken, the first week of October 2024, we're going to have another hearing, and this is going to be a cause hearing.
What does that mean, Joe? What is a cause
I think
hearing?
that it means we're going to learn. There's going to be more substance, coming out about what they have, and I think that updating relative to all of this DNA testing that has gone on. Both obviously the prosecution is going to have it and the defense is going to have it. And here's one of the other things. Some of this testing that has been conducted, it's very unique because these might be destructive tests that they're doing. And what's fascinating about it is both a representative from the prosecution and the defense have to be present for this testing. And, I think the court has seen this over the years where it can get rather contentious if the prosecution says, oh, well, we used up all the sample, and the defense says, oh, no, that's not the way this operates. We're going to, ask that a mistrial be declared or, whatever the case might be. So literally the defense and the prosecution have to be present for this. So this complicates matters. And I'm wondering if this is not the next step in that. Because, Dave, listen, from a forensic standpoint, we hear about this a lot in cases. There's a couple of cases out there right now where I think that many times the general public begins to think about, well, you have blood, so therefore you can go out and get an arrest warrant and arrest somebody. Now, that's not the way it works, not in forensics at least. If you find something that you believe is in fact blood, you have to verify that, don't you? You have to do what is referred to as presumptive testing on an item that might have blood on the surface, say, for instance, with a knife, or if you have a piece of cloth or even a droplet on the floor. You cannot just simply assume that is, first off, that it is blood. So that's our first step. We have to go in and take a look at that sample and see if it is in fact blood. And then from that point, you can move on to the next level, which is where we're going to take a look at it from the perspective of, well, we verified that it is blood, but is it human blood? Because you can have animal blood as well. If you have pets in the home, there's a couple of cases out there where people were deer hunters. They tracked blood into the house, and it turned out not to be human. It was actually deer blood. So you have to be able to whittle that down. Well, if you establish that it is, in fact, human blood, you go to the next level of testing, which, of course, begins to lead into, well, typing the blood. What blood grouping does it fall into? And if you have a missing person, if you try to say, okay, well, what blood group would Anna fall into? And hopefully you can establish that. And then, of course, then you're going to have a DNA fingerprint as well relative to that. Blood is a curious substance because it's multi-layered. It contains several elements to it that actually make it blood. And much of this relative to attempting to determine how old it is going to be heavily dependent upon not so much time as it is exposure. What this sample has been exposed to over a period of time. You can go back and take a look at samples from long, long ago. As a matter of fact, famously, you were able to take a sample of President Lincoln's blood and actually do a DNA profile on it. So, yeah, you can take historic samples even and essentially profile them. I'm going to hit you with a bit of, this is a cold cup of coffee here coming your way.
All right. Ready.
If her body was deposited in this environment. We talked about anaerobic environments the other day. That's a case involving an oxygen deprived area where bodies begin to break down. We talked about, I think just the other day, about a body that had been found in a septic tank, which is, of course, an anaerobic environment, which means that there's no oxygen in the environment. And, what goes on with decay relative to an anaerobic environment. The environment, if I believe what is true relative to what the police are working as, if she has gone into this aerobic environment in a landfill, then, brother, there ain't going to be much left. And so this blood, that makes this blood so very valuable in this case, because as far as the corpus delicti, that is the body or the body of the crime, the blood might be all that remains.
But Joe, when you guys, forensic people say that we don't have a body, but we have blood. We have what we believe to be blood, and there's so much of it that it is incompatible with life to have lost this much blood. But then when I hear that there's so little blood that they have to have the prosecution and the defense together to witness this, I'm concerned, because I would think, based on doing this show with you try to hack up a body and you've got a big mess on your hands.
Yeah, you do. And I'm amazed that a bent knife would have been left behind. I think that's one of the things, because that's pretty obvious. And I think any person that has, a couple of marbles rolling around their head would know that if you've used a knife in an actionable form to dismember a body, you would have to at least have some awareness that you could leave some trace behind on the surface, the handle, even the hilt, caught up in the little screws or along the edges where the thing is put together. But the fact that they recovered that, and also these other elements of blood that they have, and many times first off, I got to say, I'm very proud of you that you use the term incompatible with life, because that's something that we work with.
Learn from Joe, I'll tell you.
Yeah. In this case, I'm thinking, were they able to ascertain that there had been a copious amount of blood to the point where it was not compatible with life? Was it something that could maybe not be quantified, but maybe qualified to say, yeah, this looks like this had been a lot of blood? And how do you assess that so that you can declare it? You can say this is definitely human blood, and not only is it human blood, it's Anna Walsh's blood.
See, I thought this was a simple process, Joe. I used to think that there's blood, you can find out that it's me. It's a blood drop from a nosebleed, but you can tell. You can get this and find out it belongs to Dave Mack. And then I found out that it's not like that at all.
Yeah, I don't know what has happened relative to this, that it was such a thorough cleaning job performed, perhaps, that they only have found a tiny remnant here. And how viable is it? Because that's one of the things that they're obviously interested in here. And if this is DNA testing that we're talking about, if it's, we think that it might be a destructive test, if it is that destructive, that means that there's a very low sample that they have, because you can't continue to go back to the well, if you know what a metaphor is. You can't do that. And so you would need the defense and the prosecution there.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy, featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn, sensational!
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
There's a certain level of dehydration that occurs with blood, depending upon how long it's been down. And again, it's completely dependent upon environmental factors. And you can kind of eyeball it and get an idea that if you've got a sample that has gotten to the point where it has gone from brilliant red to brown, and then there's another phase where it will essentially go to this kind of brown cracked appearance, and this is why this is so difficult when you're eyeballing what you think is a blood sample, because it can actually look like chocolate, believe it or not. And it goes from this kind of brown, cracked appearance to flaking. But here's the problem. There is no definitive time marker that you can place on that where it is an absolute. Okay, you're going to have a lot of wiggle room. And one of the reasons is that you cannot account for all of the environmental influences that have taken place in and surrounding that environment. We're talking about Massachusetts. Yeah, it'd be cold outside, but conversely, are you running the furnace in the house and you've got this thing cranked up so that it's so hot in there that it's going to cause changes in any kind of biological element that you have around? I'm really interested, I think, to see what's going to be revealed in this October hearing. This is going to be significant in this case. And we'll learn a lot more about, first off, what's been going on in the silence,
right.
in light of the Karen Reed case. And
that's
obviously, go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to ask because we have avoided the Karen Reed case. I know that you've gotten drug into it a couple of times, as have I. And I was really shocked that we didn't know more in that one because of the fact that it seemed like this is a totally, you could figure this one out. And the fact that it isn't just smells bad to me. This is a different case here with Anna Walshe, mainly because they have evidence like this. They've got documents that I had to read through where they had all the electronics, that you mentioned earlier, but they also had the physical searches conducted by police that included photos of Brian Walshe in the days after his wife vanished, where they've got him shopping at Home Depot, where his car is filled with cleaning products, 2 large clear tarps, 3 buckets with lids, and 2 splash-resistant goggles. This is all photographic evidence. What person in his right mind at this age needs this? And then you have making 6 trips to dumpsters in 5 days.
Yep.
And historically speaking, this is the kind of evidence that they come up with during an investigation. This isn't real time. They didn't have somebody, they didn't know to follow him around. They didn't know she was missing. And so this is after the fact where police go back. This is what gets me about investigations. They are so much, they're so much more thought out than I would be to think that let's find it if there's cameras all around these different areas.
Yeah.
And let's see if he was, and then they get him.
Right now, I'm thinking about what kind of logistics are involved in this for the police. And I've been involved in cases where I've had to go to landfills, and they are an absolute nightmare. I mean, it is a nightmare. You remember when we were kids, we used to play that game called red light, green light. Everybody would be moving in the yard. You'd be all together and somebody would say green light, red light, and you'd have to stop. Well, trying to stop the process of, I'll repeat it. The process of processing garbage is monumental. Where are the receptacles, and then on what kind of schedule are the trucks on? They're going to pick this stuff up, and then once the trucks, if they're serviced by specific service, what landfill are they going to go to? Because various different locations, and depending upon the region of the country you're in, they might be serviced by private companies. It might not necessarily be the city or the county that's doing this, and so they have different areas they're going to go to, and again, that adds another layer to this. So from that moment in time, we do have a starting place. We have obviously the Walshe's trash, and then you were referring to the husband's mother's location. Where would her trash go? How would you track that down? Oh, and by the way, between his house, the Walshe's home, and his mother's home, where else is there that he could have gone to? Or did he take some kind of detour in going there? Is there some kind of other location where items could be deposited along the way? And all of that has to be factored in. And listen, you've got a very tight window to do this in, because if this stuff makes it out to a landfill, they put it out into grids, and those grids are subsequently covered up. You've got this stratification that's going on with this very, very fragile biological evidence that begins to break down very quickly. I'm going to throw one more thing out that I want our listeners to understand. When you are in a landfill, this is a highly aerobic environment, which means that you've got a lot of microscopic activity going on, and it's made that way so that things break down. And that's why they periodically turn the trash out there. They're always running over it with these big trucks and equipment and stuff. So time is of the essence. If you don't capture it at that moment in time, your entire case could be lost, and all of the physical evidence can be lost as well.
Friday. Kick off the Winter Olympics in style with the opening ceremony from Italy. featuring a special performance by Mariah Carey. Celebrate the greatest athletes from around the globe as they come together to go for gold.
Lindsey Vonn sensational.
The opening ceremony of the Winter Olympics.
Ilya Malinin.
Redefining the sport.
Friday at 8 Eastern, 7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
A lot of this goes back to the police having to look at who their primary suspect is and what kind of behaviors is this individual normally engaged in. Here's kind of a salient point, I believe. The question would be for me is, who did he talk to? Not where didn't he go, but where did he go on a regular basis? And that's within a comfort zone for this individual. Most people that perpetrate a crime and they're not an arch criminal out there, which most of those types of people don't truly exist. They do in comic books. But when you find yourself in the midst of having been allegedly involved in something so horrific, you need those things you're going to feel comfortable with. And you're going to feel most comfortable going to locations that you frequent, things that you pass by every day that you would see. Hey, look, there's a dumpster behind that convenience store. Or, hey, look, there's a trash can. This person never takes in their trash can. They just leave it out there all week long. It always sits by the road. I'm going to arbitrarily throw this in. My gosh, all we have to do is think back. This is one of our earliest cases that we covered on body bags, and that was the infamous Ingrid Lynn case out of Seattle, where she'd met this guy on a dating app, and he brought her home that evening and wound up killing her and actually dismembering her body in a bathtub in that house. And he went to places that were convenient for him along his route. He actually deposited parts of her body all over the city in recyclable trash cans. It just so happened, I think, that they would have had a hard time with this case, even more difficult than they wound up having, if this random citizen had not walked out to their trash can to retrieve it and noticed that it was heavy, looked down in there, and can you imagine this? Looks down in there and discovers, I think it was a foot sticking out. So you just never know about what a perpetrator is going to do. They're going to do, I think, those things that make them feel most comfortable, because this is already complicated enough when you begin to think about what kind of intellectual energy has to go into this in order to facilitate this, pull it off. And you've always got it in the back of your mind, I would imagine, that somebody is always watching, that they're going to get onto you, that you're going to leave a trace behind. And of course, they always do. In this particular case, the police will exhaust every possibility that they can. And at some point in time, you just have to call it quits. But, you want to talk about leaving a trail behind. When the police actually got a hold of I think it was the iPad that was found in the home per search warrant. This is what was left behind on the iPad. Just listen. This is kind of these little bulleted points that I have here. 10 ways to dismember a body. Does baking soda make a body smell good? How long is someone missing before you can inherit? Can you throw away body parts? Can you be charged with a murder without a body? Dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. A little light Saturday afternoon reading, huh?
And something we have to remember is that she had said that her husband had threatened to kill her before.
Yeah, and her mother, who I think is from Eastern Europe, maybe Serbia, was not even aware of this, and that came out later that he had threatened her, I think, many, many years ago, and the mother was astounded to find this out.
We've got Anna Walsh's husband doing some really odd things for somebody that's not covering up a body.
Well, I think the big reveal is going to be how well did he protect those. I always use the term elements. I don't really know. I hate to use the term pieces or parts. I don't know. There's something degrading about that. But the elements of her body that remained behind, how well were they packaged? Where were they packaged? And there's no contact trace left, at the home, at the residence where we think that this may have happened, in the surrounding area, or perhaps even in the, what are you going to find in the in these dumpsters where we know that the remains were dumped. Again, those dumpsters are an aerobic environment, and there's so much. My friend from New Jersey used to say schmutz. There's so much schmutz all over the place that, that's kind of layered and gross and disgusting.
Yeah, right.
You're not going to be able to recover anything out of that. And then you've got multiple locations. So when you're going around to multiple locations and with these elements, if you will, they're being dumped at various locations in a specific landfill, and they're being covered over and over and over again. And that landfill, listen, trust me, they did not shut down that landfill because this case happened. It's the layering is still going on. And that's another thing that complicates this, is that there are specific areas in landfills. This is not a randomized place. I always tell people this people think that landfills are random. They're not. They're highly complex.
I had no idea.
They're gridded off because you don't want it to. They can't, and in simple terms, they cannot afford to have this collection in one particular area and not spread it out all over the place. So, grid 1A will be used this day, and it might be dormant for the rest of the week while they're using the other grids, and then they're going to go back, and it might be a daily shifting that's going on. So if you have multiple elements in multiple locations, and then since this has happened, Dave, there has been layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and that stuff is just cooking in there all this time through the heat, the decomposition, and the chances. I mean, just by their nature, they are created to break things down. Okay. So it's like, what's the old adage? It's like looking for a needle in a stack of needles.
And who knows, what might be the motivation behind all of this. And again, he's innocent until proven guilty. He's merely been charged at this point in time. But you have to look at the totality of the circumstances and who would have had the opportunity in order to perpetrate such a heinous crime. I look at this and I begin to think deep down in my heart of hearts. I've been married for a long time. I've got kids. Many of us can identify with this. At what point in time do you get in a relationship where you say, okay, I'm going to kill the person that I've been married to, and oh, by the way, not only married to, but created a life with and have attempted to build a life with? At what point do you get to? And I think that that's currently what the police are trying to explore. What would be the overall motivating factor for somebody to have done this, to do this with a person that you've built a life with and completely destroy it?
The reason we even did this update is because this case has been followed. It has garnered a lot of attention, and yet DNA testing in Anna Walshe's murder case is finally nearing completion. With so much of the evidence to sift through for both sides, the next hearing in the Walshe case is going to be held in a couple of weeks in October. The Norfolk County Assistant DA, Greg Connor, told the court that he's received all the crime lab materials and plans to file a notice of discovery with the exception of the state DNA lab testing. He said the DNA lab expects to finish testing on their items at the end of this month, and he'll file another notice of discovery afterwards. We don't really know anything other than the timetable they give us. We know they have the information. We know they're studying it and will release it because they have to.
Hopefully. As of the first week of October up in Massachusetts, we're going to know more. We'll know more about the status of the Anna Walshe case, in which direction both the prosecution and the defense are going to go. I'm Joseph Scott Morgan, and this is Body Bags.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.